My name is Layla. I am 24 years old, and I was born into wealth, a life that looks like a fairy tale from the outside. But inside it was a cage. Every day I wake in my gold-lined room, with silk curtains and servants attending to my smallest needs. Yet my heart felt hollow, like a desert with no rain. I grew up in Riyadh, surrounded by luxury, but also by rules so strict, so suffocating, that they felt heavier than the walls themselves. My father, a prince of the royal family, demanded obedience. My mother, though gentle, was trapped by fear, and my siblings lived comfortably but without a voice of their own. From a young age, I was taught the Quran, prayed 5 times a day, and memorized every verse, but something never settled in my soul. I would sit quietly in my room, pretending to recite while secretly wondering, "Is this all there is? Is this truly God?" I didn't dare speak these thoughts aloud. To do so would have been to betray everything I had ever known. And yet the hunger was there, a gnawing emptiness, a whisper inside that maybe there was something more. I remember, as a girl of 12, hiding behind the drapes, listening to a neighbor's radio broadcast of foreign music and voices I could not understand. My heart leapt. "Why do their hearts seem freer?" I whispered, but I swallowed the question. Fear wrapped around me like a cloak. The walls had ears, and in our home, obedience was law. As I grew older, I wore the mask of the obedient daughter. At family dinners, I smiled politely, nodding as men debated politics and religion. At weddings, I clapped and said the correct prayers. But at night, when the house was silent and the moonlight spilled on the marble floors, I would sit alone and long for something I could not name. I would sneak into corners of the palace library, hoping for something, anything that might fill this void. I remember the scent of old books, the quiet rustle of pages, and the secret thrill of reading passages that spoke of love, mercy, and a God who knew my heart. Those moments were fleeting, stolen from the eyes of my family, yet they became the sparks of my hidden rebellion. Little did I know, those sparks would grow into a fire that would consume the comfortable life I knew and lead me down a path my family could never forgive, and a path that would bring me face to face with Jesus himself. I want to pause here and speak directly to you, those watching this story. If you've ever felt trapped, silenced, or hungry for a deeper truth, know that you are not alone. And if this story touches your heart, I humbly ask you to subscribe, like, comment, and share so more testimonies like mine can reach those who need hope. That is my prayer. But returning to my life, the emptiness only grew. Even surrounded by gold, even wearing designer abayas and attending grand parties, my soul cried for freedom. I would sneak into the library again and again, hiding behind the tall shelves, touching the spines of books I could not read aloud. My grandmother's whispered doubts, my mother's silent tears, my father's cold stares, all returned to me in flashbacks, haunting my nights. And as I sat there, candle flickering, moonlight falling over my hands, I prayed silently, "God, if you are real, show me, help me." I felt a stirring in my heart that night. A faint but undeniable whisper that I was being called somewhere beyond gold, beyond fear, beyond obedience. I did not yet know where that path would lead, only that it would demand everything of me. I did not yet know that it would bring me to life, to freedom, and ultimately to Jesus himself, who was waiting to meet me where I was, lost and hungry. Doubt came slowly at first, like water seeping into dry earth, quiet but unstoppable. I watched my family, the smiles, the polite manners, the way they carried themselves in public, and I began to notice cracks, hypocrisy, injustice, fear masquerading as piety. My father would give charity in public, yet in private he dismissed the poor with disdain. My brothers preached morality but laughed at servants behind closed doors. I began asking questions quietly in my heart, and questions I could never speak aloud. Is this what God truly desires? Is this faith or obedience wrapped in fear? My closest friends, who also felt trapped, would whisper to me on the rooftop at night, the city lights below twinkling like distant stars. "Sometimes I wonder," one of them said, her voice trembling, "if God even hears us." I nodded, silent, my own heart echoing the fear and longing in hers. Those nights, I would stare at the vast sky, feeling both awe and emptiness. Around this time, I found a hidden Bible app on my phone. My fingers trembled as I downloaded it. The first verses I read struck me like a bolt of lightning. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." My chest tightened, a relief washing over me unlike anything I had ever known. Fear immediately followed. If anyone discovered this, my life could be in danger. Yet the comfort I felt made me return to it, night after night, hiding under blankets, behind locked doors, in the quiet moments before dawn. Each verse whispered hope I had never heard in the Quran. I remembered moments from my childhood, my grandmother quietly questioning the strict rules, silenced by shame, my father's cold glare when I innocently asked about faith, my mother's silent tears, and I began to realize that my soul had always been searching for something more. Every time I read, I felt a strange stirring, a call from a God who knew me, who understood the fear and longing I could not share with anyone. The hunger inside me grew urgent, pressing at the edges of my mind, demanding I choose between comfort and truth. One night, I pressed my hands to my chest, the candlelight flickering across my face, and whispered, God, if you are real, show me. If you are the one who can save me from this life of fear, from this emptiness, teach me to know you. Tears fell freely as I read passages about love, mercy, and forgiveness. My fear of discovery mingled with awe and longing. I began to feel alive in ways I had never known, a fire burning quietly in my soul, uncontainable and demanding. The city outside remained indifferent, the palace silent except for the ticking of clocks and occasional creak of the floorboards. Yet I felt a presence with me, unseen but undeniable. I knew, deep down, that my life was shifting. Something inside me had awakened, a voice calling me forward, and though I could not yet name it, I felt that the path I was on would soon demand everything: courage, faith, and ultimately a choice that would change my life forever. I lay awake that night, the glow of the candle dying down, my heart pounding, knowing that the emptiness I had carried for 24 years was about to meet the only thing that could fill it. It was the week of my 21st birthday when I discovered it, a small leather-bound Bible hidden in a forgotten corner of the palace library, wedged between thick Quranic commentaries and history books. My heart raced as I traced my fingers over the worn edges, and a voice inside whispered, "Don't touch it, don't open it." But another louder voice, the one I had been listening to in secret for years, said, "Yes, open it." That night, I locked myself in my room, lit a single candle, and began to read. The words were strange at first, foreign, yet somehow familiar, like a melody my soul had always known but forgotten. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." My chest tightened. Rest? From what? From fear? From rules? From suffocating expectations? I whispered, "God, could this be you?" Flashbacks filled my mind. My grandmother's hushed prayers, my mother's quiet tears, my father's cold stares, my siblings' cruel jokes at servants. And yet, as I read, a warmth wrapped around me, gentle but unyielding, like a hand on my shoulder telling me I was safe, I was loved, I was seen. Tears slid down my cheeks, and I pressed the book to my chest, feeling a joy I had never known, a comfort I could not explain. But fear never left me. Every creak of the palace floor, every shadow cast by the flickering candle reminded me that this secret could destroy me. My mind raced with what ifs. What if my father knew? What if my mother betrayed me to protect herself? What if my life, my very blood, was at risk? Yet each verse I read brought more peace than fear. My heart was awakening, trembling but alive, stirring towards something I could not yet name. I began reading every night, in stolen moments, under blankets, behind locked doors, feeling the presence of someone near, someone who understood every fear, every longing, every secret tear I had shed. And with each word, I felt my soul stretch, awaken, and breathe for the first time. One night as I read, a loud knock shattered the silence. My heart leapt into my throat. "Layla," a voice called from the hall. Panic surged through me. I grabbed the Bible, shoving it under my pillow, my hands shaking. I opened the door just a crack. The hallway was empty. My pulse raced. And I realized the danger I was in. Yet, even as fear gripped me, I knew I could not stop. I would return to this book again and again, drawn by a love I could not yet explain. My fingers traced the worn pages. My eyes devoured the verses. My soul drank in a peace I had never known in all my life of privilege. I whispered into the darkness, "God, if you are real, show me, speak to me, teach me." And in that quiet, I felt a presence, gentle and undeniable, a warmth that promised I was not alone. It was the first time I realized my life would never be the same. The fire of discovery had ignited, and there was no turning back. Something was coming, something greater than fear, greater than gold, greater than my family's expectations. I did not yet know what form it would take, but I knew it would demand courage I had never found. A faith I had never practiced, and a love that would change everything. That night, as the candle guttered and the palace slept, I felt my heart stir toward a new life, a life I had only glimpsed in secret hope, a life that would bring me face to face with Jesus himself. It happened on a night that began like any other, quiet and still, but it ended with my heart pounding and my soul frozen in terror. I was in my room, Bible open on my lap, candle flickering, reading passages that whispered love, mercy, and peace into the emptiness I had carried for so long. The words filled me with warmth, yet fear had become a constant companion. I knew that discovery could mean death, yet I could not stop reading. The sound of the palace doors creaking made me jump every time. Then suddenly, a shadow appeared in the doorway. My brother's silhouette froze in the candlelight, eyes wide, jaw tight. "Layla, what are you doing?" His voice was calm, but I heard the underlying threat. My blood ran cold. I had been found. My mind raced. "Please, it's just a book," I whispered, though I knew it was impossible to make him understand. "It's nothing." He stepped forward, the candlelight casting long shadows across the room. "Do you know what this could mean? Do you understand the shame you have brought upon our family?" My throat tightened. Shame. Fear. I felt my chest constricting as though the air itself had been stolen. I needed to know," I stammered, my hands shaking, trying to cover the Bible. The look in his eyes told me there was no room for explanation, no mercy. The words he did not say shouted louder than anything. "You could die for this. Ariel, protect me. I am yours. Save Ariel, protect me. I am yours. Save me." In that moment the room seemed to melt away. Candlelight, shadows, fear, all dissolved into a presence so strong, so gentle, it could not be described. A warmth surrounded me, and I felt a voice, not in sound, but in knowing, say, "Fear not, my child, I am with you." My entire body trembled. I did not understand how or why, but I felt embraced, comforted, and strangely courageous. The terror was still there, but it was no longer absolute. The next moments were a blur. My brother left without further words, but I knew the danger had only begun. My mind raced with possibilities, threats, and escape. Could I run? Could I hide? Would my parents forgive? Or would my life be forfeit? My heart pounded like a drum, echoing the fear I had carried for years. And yet, beneath the terror, beneath the suffocating walls of tradition and expectation, I felt something new stirring, a hope, a peace, a certainty that I had never experienced before. For the first time, I realized that my soul was not alone, that someone greater than gold, greater than fear, greater than my family's power was holding me. I whispered again, "God, if you are real, guide me, protect me, show me the way." And in that instant, I saw him, not fully, not physically, but in my spirit. Jesus. His presence filled the room. Love, pure and overwhelming, washed over me. I could not speak, could not move, could not breathe except to feel his nearness. The fear did not vanish, but it was now tempered by courage, by trust. I knew that whatever came next, punishment, exile, or worse, I could face it, because I was not alone. That night, lying on my bed, trembling and soaked in tears, I realized that the life I had known, the golden cage, the rules, the fear, would never hold me again. Something had begun that could not be undone. Something holy, something divine, something that would demand all of me, was awakening in my heart. I was no longer the frightened princess who obeyed without question. I was a child of God, being called into a path I could not yet see, but one I would follow with all I had. The night I truly met him, I knew my life would never be the same. I had been trembling for hours, fear clawing at my chest, heart pounding like a drum, every shadow in the palace a threat, every whisper a warning. But as I knelt on the cold marble floor, a Bible open and candle flickering, I felt it. A presence stronger than fear, warmer than gold, more real than anything I had ever known. Suddenly, the darkness around me seemed to dissolve, replaced by a light that filled the room yet hurt my eyes in the most comforting way. And then I saw him, not with my eyes, not physically, but in my spirit, Jesus. His face radiant, gentle, full of love, and looking straight at me, knowing me, seeing me in ways no one in my family ever had. "Layla," he whispered, though the voice was not heard with my ears but felt deep inside my heart. "Fear not, for I have called you by name. You are mine." My knees shook, tears streaming down my face. "Lord, I don't understand. My family, my life. I could be killed. I'm just a girl. How can you call me yours?" The warmth of his presence enveloped me. Yet, and I felt a peace so profound it made the terror shrink. "Child," he said, "nothing can separate you from my love. You have been lost, wandering in fear and tradition, but now you are found. Trust me, follow me." I felt my heart swell, breaking and mending at the same time. I remembered all the years of emptiness, the golden cage I had been born into, the nights of secret prayers and whispered doubts, and now, in this presence, all that fear seemed smaller, distant, irrelevant. For the first time, I understood what freedom truly meant. It was not in riches, not in obedience to human laws, not in hiding behind perfection. Freedom was in surrender, in trusting Him, in letting Him hold me even when the world threatened everything. "I want to follow you," I whispered, my voice barely audible, trembling with both fear and courage. "I want to know you. I want to live for you." And I felt Him smile in my spirit, a smile that radiated approval, acceptance, and unconditional love. I did not feel alone. I did not feel afraid. The fire that had been igniting in my heart for years, the secret yearning, the gnawing emptiness, suddenly erupted into something bright, something alive. I knew that from this moment forward, my life would not be the same. There would be pain, there would be rejection, there would be fear, but there would also be courage, clarity, and a love that no one could take away. I felt my tears dry on their own, replaced by a calm determination. I would face whatever came next with Him by my side. I realized then that following Jesus was not a path of ease. It was a path of truth, of sacrifice, of courage. But it was the only path that could save me. That could free me, that could fill the hollow in my soul. As the vision faded and the room returned to its normal dimness, I sat on the floor, trembling yet unafraid. I could hear my own heartbeat, steady now, filled with new purpose. I whispered a prayer of surrender, of gratitude, of commitment. "Lord, I am yours. Guide me, protect me, teach me to follow you, even if it costs me everything." And in that moment, I felt a peace unlike anything I had ever known. The emptiness was gone, replaced by a light that would never leave me. My heart had been reborn. My soul had been awakened. I knew the world outside my room, the dangers, my family, the threats, would soon confront me. But I also knew I would not face it alone. Jesus had found me. He had spoken to me. He had transformed me, and I was ready to follow Him no matter the cost. The morning after that encounter, nothing in my world felt the same. My heart was full of a love I could not hide, yet my body trembled because I knew my secret would not remain hidden for long. The walls of the palace felt thinner, the air heavier, and every glance from my family carried suspicion. It began with whispers, small questions from my mother that I could not answer without revealing too much. Then came the accusing glances from my brothers, the subtle judgment of cousins and family friends who seemed to sense a shift in me I could not explain. I tried to keep my composure, smiling politely at dinners, nodding in prayers, attending gatherings as before, but inside I was at war. Every heartbeat reminded me that my choice, this new faith I had embraced, was dangerous. The fear was constant, gnawing at my mind. But so was the peace I had felt in His presence, the love that would not let me go. I began to notice the subtle changes in others. Friends avoiding my gaze, relatives whispering when I entered a room, servants exchanging worried looks. Rumors began to swirl, small at first, then louder, until I felt as if the entire household was waiting for me to slip, to reveal the secret in my heart. And then came the summons. My father requested my presence in the main hall, and alongside him sat a high-ranking imam from the city. My knees shook as I approached, my chest tight, knowing that this could be the moment where everything collapsed. Their eyes were cold, measuring, expecting obedience, expecting denial, expecting fear, and yet I felt something deeper within me stirring, courage I had never known. The imam's words were sharp, probing, like accusing. "Do you understand the seriousness of your actions? Do you know what it means to betray your family and your faith?" My father's voice followed, low but firm. "Layla, you are stepping into dangerous ground. You must recant." I felt a tremor pass through my body, but I could not bring myself to lie. I had tasted a love that was real, a freedom that was life itself. I remembered the warmth of His presence, the words that had filled me with courage, and I found my voice. "I cannot turn back. I cannot deny what I have found." The room froze. Whispers erupted, faces twisted in shock and anger. I felt the weight of every judgment, every threat, every expectation pressing down on me. Yet I also felt Him holding me, whispering reassurance to my soul. That night, alone in my room, I reflected on everything I had lost already, the smiles of friends, the comfort of family, the approval I had once valued. Yet I felt no regret. I was alive in a way I had never been, filled with a love that no one could take from me. I began to connect secretly with Christian communities online, messages of encouragement, prayers, and testimonies of others who had faced rejection for their faith. These voices became my lifeline, proof that I was not alone in the world. Each prayer, each scripture shared, strengthened me for the trials I knew were coming. I realized that following Christ meant standing firm even when all else fell away, and that His love would carry me through the rejection, the fear, and the danger. As I lay in the dark, the palace silent around me, I whispered another prayer, one of surrender, courage, and hope. Lord, I am yours. Strengthen me. Prepare me for what must come. Protect me, guide me, and help me stand firm. I felt a peace settle over me, a light in the darkness, a knowledge that though my family might shatter, though whispers and accusations might continue, I was being held by the one who would never abandon me. That night, I understood for the first time what it truly meant to follow Him, and I knew the next confrontation, the next test, would come soon. But I also knew that my soul was ready, strengthened by His presence, and that nothing in this world could undo the awakening that had begun within me. The days that followed felt like walking through fire. Every glance, every word, every silence from my family reminded me that they expected me to break, to recant, to deny what my heart knew was true. I felt the weight of generations pressing down on me, the fear of death, the threat of dishonor, yet beneath it all, I felt a fire that refused to be quenched. I began to practice my faith quietly but boldly, praying aloud in secret moments, reading scripture when the palace slept, and whispering His name as though it were the only air I could breathe. Each time I did, I felt courage grow, courage I had never known, a strength that could not be measured by fear or threats. I remembered my childhood lessons about obedience and shame, the years spent memorizing Quranic verses without understanding their meaning in my soul, and I realized how blind I had been. I thought obedience would bring peace, yet it had only brought chains. Now, even with my family watching, even with danger looming, I felt freedom in truth. One evening, my father and the imam confronted me again. Their eyes were hard, and their words were sharper than knives, demanding that I renounce my faith. My heart pounded, every muscle tense, but I could not lie. I looked at them and said, I cannot deny Him. I have found the truth, and it is not fear I follow, but love. Their shock was palpable, whispers and gasps rippling through the room. I felt the familiar fear rise, yet I also felt Him steady me from within, His presence a shield around my trembling body. Flashbacks of my secret nights reading the Bible, of His first vision, of the love that had filled my empty heart, strengthened my voice. I remembered every prayer whispered in darkness, every tear shed in fear, every stolen moment of hope, and I knew I would never go back. My father's hand shook as he gestured toward the imam. At both of them struggling to comprehend that I was no longer the obedient princess they had raised, that I had chosen a path they could not control. I felt their anger, their disbelief, their frustration, and I knew that fear would not sway me. I thought of the fire that had awakened within me, the love that had called me, and I realized that standing firm was not pride or rebellion. It was survival, spiritual survival, a defense of my soul. I whispered silently, Lord, give me courage. Let me not falter. Each heartbeat echoed His name, and each breath reminded me that I was being held. The confrontation ended without violence that day, but I knew it was only the beginning. Whispers continued in the palace, rumors spread, and friends began to turn away. Yet I felt no regret. I had chosen the truth. And the cost was nothing compared to the joy and peace He had given me. I began to pray more fervently, to seek guidance and strength, and to imagine the final confrontation that would demand all of my courage and faith. Every night, as I lay in the darkened room, candle guttering beside me, I visualized standing before my father and the imam, unwavering, unafraid, held by the one who had found me. I understood that following Him meant that I could face rejection, danger, and even death without fear, because my soul was anchored in something eternal. I realized that the next steps I would take would define me, not in gold or tradition, but in truth, in courage, and in love. I whispered one last prayer that night. Lord, prepare my heart, strengthen my faith. Let me stand firm when the moment comes. Let me honor You above all else. And in that whisper, I felt a warmth flood my spirit, a quiet but unshakable confirmation that I was ready for what was to come, that I would no longer be a prisoner of fear, but a daughter of freedom, called by Him, strengthened by Him, and unafraid to follow Him wherever He led. The day of the confrontation arrived, and I felt every heartbeat like a drum in my chest, every breath heavy with fear and anticipation. My father summoned me to the main hall, and the imam sat at his side, his expression unreadable, calm yet filled with judgment. I walked in slowly, head held as high as I could, though my knees shook and my hands trembled. The eyes of my family and their guests seemed to peer straight into my soul, expecting me to crumble, to fall, to beg for forgiveness. My father's voice was low but sharp. Layla, you know what is expected of you. You know the consequences of defying your family and our faith. Will you renounce this path? I felt a tremor of fear rise, but I focused on the presence I had felt in my darkest moments, the one that had never abandoned me. I spoke, my voice quivering at first, then gaining strength. I cannot. I have found the truth, and I cannot turn back. I am not afraid of you, or death, or the shame. I am held by someone far greater than all of this. The imam's eyes narrowed, a mix of anger and disbelief. Do you understand what you are risking? Your life, your family, your honor. I swallowed hard, tears prickling my eyes, and whispered, Yes, I understand. But I am not alone. I am held by the Lord, and I will not deny him. A silence fell over the room, so thick it felt suffocating. Then, as if the walls themselves disappeared, I felt it. The warmth, the light, the overwhelming presence that had been with me all along. Jesus. I could feel him beside me, not just in memory but in the moment, comforting me, steadying me, whispering courage into my soul. My body relaxed slightly, my fear tempered by the certainty of his love. Fear not, my child, his voice echoed in my spirit. Stand firm, I am with you. I closed my eyes for a moment, drawing strength from him, letting his presence fill me with a courage I had never known. I opened them and met my father's gaze directly. I will follow him, I said clearly, firmly, with no hesitation. Even if it costs me everything, I will not turn away. The tension in the room was palpable. Faces turned pale. Whispers rose. Some of my relatives looked away. Some shook their heads in disbelief. But I felt an unshakable calm. I knew that the one holding me was far more powerful than any human authority, any threat, any fear. The imam's voice grew louder, more insistent, trying to sway me, trying to invoke fear. But I did not falter. I thought of all the nights I had spent in secret, all the prayers whispered in darkness, all the fear I had endured alone, and I realized it had prepared me for this moment. I could face them without wavering because I had already been held by the one who conquers all fear. My father's hand trembled as he gestured, his anger mingled with confusion, the weight of family expectation pressing down on him. I felt compassion for him, even as I stood firm, knowing that love sometimes requires letting go, even if it breaks hearts. As the confrontation reached its peak, I felt the presence strengthen, an overwhelming wave of peace and courage flooding me. I was no longer a frightened princess, no longer a child trapped by rules, expectations, or fear. I was reborn in him, fully alive, fully his and fully unafraid. I knew the battle was not over, that the days ahead would still test me, that dangers and trials awaited, but I also knew I had been transformed. I had been called, strengthened, and prepared. And as I stood there, facing my father and the imam, I whispered silently, Lord, thank you. I am yours. I will not turn back. And in that whisper, I felt a certainty deeper than fear, a love stronger than any threat, and a peace that could not be shaken. After the confrontation, the palace felt heavier than ever, shadows darker, whispers sharper, and I knew that staying would soon be impossible. I could not deny him, yet I also knew I had to survive to live fully in the freedom I had found. That night, I packed a small bag in secret, carrying only essentials and the Bible that had awakened my soul. Every step was deliberate, every creak of the floor sounding like a trumpet in my ears. Yet I felt a calm I had never known before. I whispered a prayer, Lord, guide me, protect me, show me the path. And as if answering, a door I had never noticed before, an old servant passage, appeared in my mind's eye, and I knew what I must do. I moved silently, heart pounding, clutching the small bag to my chest. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, moonlight illuminating the path. I ran as if the earth itself carried me, every fear chased away by the presence I felt within. I could feel him beside me, guiding my steps, whispering courage, shielding me from danger. The wind on my face felt like freedom, the cold sand under my feet like liberation. Each step I took was a rebellion against fear, a declaration that I would not be bound by human chains. Hours later, I found safety in a small, secret community of believers who had left in their own ways. People who understood the cost, the pain, and the courage it took to follow him. They embraced me, not as a princess, not as someone with wealth, but as a daughter of God, and I felt my soul exhale for the first time. In their presence, I began to process the losses, the family who had turned away, the friends who had whispered rumors, the life I had known but could never return to. Tears came freely, but alongside them came gratitude, peace, and joy that I had never known in my gilded cage. I reflected on the path I had walked, the fear, the secret prayers, the visions, the whispers of His presence, and the courage that had grown from them. I understood now that discipleship is not comfortable. It is costly. It demands sacrifice, courage, and unwavering faith. And yet, it is more precious than any earthly wealth, more real than any palace, and more freeing than any law. I spent days reading scripture aloud with the community, sharing my story, and discovering a strength I had not known I possessed. The Bible that had been forbidden in my home now became a lamp for my feet, a guide for my heart, and a bridge to new relationships built on truth and love. Each prayer, each verse, each act of fellowship reminded me that the life I had run from was not lost, but transformed into something eternal. I understood that freedom is not merely the absence of chains, but the presence of Him who saves, strengthens, and sustains. And in the quiet moments, when I knelt alone and whispered, "Lord, I am yours," I felt a profound peace settle into my soul, a certainty that no one could take away. The desert, once a symbol of isolation and fear, had become a witness to my courage and His faithfulness. The path ahead was still uncertain, but I knew it was His path, and I would follow it wherever it led. And as I took my first steps into this new life, surrounded by those who understood the cost and the joy of following Him, I whispered a prayer for my family. Lord, protect them, guide them, and let them see your love. One day, bring them to know you as I do. And I felt hope, a light in the darkness, and that what had begun in fear would one day be transformed into reconciliation, healing, and life in Him. In this new life, I finally felt what it meant to breathe freely, to walk without fear, to live fully in the love I had longed for my entire life. Surrounded by a community of believers, people who had faced the same pain, rejection, and fear for choosing Him, I began to heal. I learned that true family is not only those who share your blood, but those who walk with you in truth, who encourage your faith, who hold you up when the world seems ready to crush you. I spent hours reading scripture aloud, praying, and sharing my story with others who were hungry for hope. Each verse illuminated my heart, each prayer whispered strengthened my spirit, and each conversation reminded me that I was not alone. I reflected on the journey that had brought me here, the gilded cage of my childhood, the suffocating expectations, the whispers of doubt, the secret Bible readings, the terror of discovery, the vision of Jesus, the confrontation with my father and the Imam, and finally, the flight into freedom. Every step had been costly, yet every step had been worth it. I felt my soul expand in ways I could not have imagined. I had learned that fear is powerful, but love is stronger. Rejection hurts, but God's acceptance heals. Obedience to man may bind, but surrender to God frees. I even began to pray for my family, those who had turned away, those who had judged and threatened me, whispering, "Lord, touch their hearts, show them your love, and bring them to peace." And in those prayers I felt hope stir. Though I could not see their hearts, I trusted that He was at work, that His timing and mercy were perfect. My identity, once wrapped in fear and expectation, was now wrapped in Him. I was no longer just Layla, a princess born into wealth and chains. I was a daughter of God, chosen, loved, and called into freedom. I realized that my past did not define me, my mistakes did not imprison me, and the world's rejection could not shake me. I embraced this truth fully, allowing it to guide every decision, every prayer, every step I took. The Bible I had hidden for so long became my constant companion, its words alive and sustaining. I discovered joy in fellowship, peace in prayer, and courage in obedience. Even in moments of loneliness or longing for family, I felt His presence sustaining me, reminding me that I was never truly alone. And as I looked to the future, I knew my journey would continue to have challenges, yet I also knew that the path of faith is a path of freedom, hope, and unshakable love. I whispered my final prayer that evening, candlelight flickering across my face, heart full and steady. Lord, thank you for finding me, for loving me, for freeing me. Let my life reflect your glory. Protect my family, guide them, and bring them to know you as I do. Help me walk in courage, love, and truth every single day. And in that whisper, I felt a joy deeper than any palace, richer than any gold, and stronger than any fear. I had been reborn in him, fully alive, fully his, and fully unafraid. The journey that began in chains had ended in freedom. The fear that had haunted me for years had been replaced by a love that could never be taken away. I was home at last, not in a palace, not in wealth or expectation, but in the arms of the one who called me, redeemed me, and filled my heart with eternal peace. And I knew that this was only the beginning of a life lived in his love, courage, and grace.